Unnecessary intro song to totally waste your time. So Ace Frehley is dead. Not a surprise. It's kind of like he's one of these guys that hung on longer than you'd think he would have. When I was a kid, just like everybody else, I thought Kiss was pretty cool, when I was 10, 9. And Ace was my favorite because of the silver. That's pretty much it. I thought everybody else got black makeup. He's got silver. That's pretty badass. But anyway, once I grew up, I didn't care about Kiss. I always thought that the marketing was great. But let's get to the point of why I'm making this recording. And it's just kind of to beat a dead horse about fame and how really ugly it is. It's just super ugly. And this is kind of a strange story because about, 2018-ish, maybe earlier, 2015 or 16 maybe, I was still getting a bunch of friend requests from people because of my photography or my art or whatever. And they were just holdovers. Really, I kind of quit all that vanity fame business in about, 2014 is when I kind of stopped posting. That's when, maybe earlier than that, it might have been like 2013 when Instagram came around and the Kardashians really just made vanity culture this obvious, gross thing. That's when I decided, I don't want this photography anything anymore. I'm tired of airbrushing people, tired of, contributing to the vanity culture. But my stuff was still out there and it's still circulating and people were still adding me. And most of the people I knew on Facebook and through Flickr and Twitter were people I would never meet in real life, or if I did, I'd just meet them in passing, and it's because they liked me, because they'd seen my art, they'd seen my silly outfits and outlandish behavior or whatever. So one of these friends, started chatting with me, probably about 2017-ish, Jewish woman. And she was a photographer too, and she was a fan of my photography. So we kind of overlapped in the fashion, rock and roll world. And one of her best friends was this woman who had been dating Ace Frehley for the better part of the decade, And because of that overlap, she always wanted me to hang out with them. And here's my crazy girlfriends. And they're all kind of getting older in their late 30s, early 40s or whatever. But still kind of rocking that we're cool. We're sexy. And I still was kind of in that embarrassing scene to a certain degree, still making public appearances with my little outfits and shit, Anyway, I hadn't completely distanced myself from it yet. But, so I had the ping song game in full swing at this point. I had been doing this ping song game. In case you haven't heard my earlier recordings, I just invented this little silly game where over text, you write a song with a friend or a couple of friends, one line at a time. Player one just sends one line. Player two writes the next line, sings both lines back and forth like ping pong until the song is done. Super easy way to get a song done. Eliminates the hesitancy, the overwhelming nature of sitting down and having to write a whole song. Anyway, lots of good songs get written this way. So this woman who was dating Ace Frehley decides she thinks I'm cool too because of her friend. Friend requests me, whatever. I introduce myself and I say, hey, you want to write Pink song? I found out that she was a singer-songwriter, or else I wouldn't have asked. But so she says yes, and she's super flirtatious and LA like. It's very LA like, It's this you meet somebody else that's in the scene and they're cool. It was based on coolness, right? And so I was cool. I had all the credentials of being cool. And so she thought I was cool, and she treated me like how cool girls treat cool guys and whatever. There's a certain level of artifice about it that, I don't know. It's just like this fantasy world, the fame world, the cool world. When you meet another credentialed cool person, there's this. You're in the in club, and there's this strange kind of combination of confidence, but also insecurity that goes along with it. Because when I say the insecurity part, I'm not like saying there's a shyness or anything. I'm just saying that there's this, I don't know, this need to be cool. And coolness is really just a mask. It's just a kind of a way to hide insecurities or realness. It's coolness is being aloof, being above things, being better than things, being, not affected. And it's not something you don't set out to do it, I guess. I don't know. It's just, but anyway, it's kind of gross. But so that's the kind of exchange we're having with each other. And from what I understood from my conversations with her friends, that her and Ace had a very tumultuous kind of a relationship. Anyway, I didn't care about any of that stuff. I just thought it was interesting how small the world. It was another one of these cases how small the world is. When you're at all connected in the rock and roll world, you become 1 degree of separation from pretty much everybody, right? I mean, honestly, still to this day, when I see a famous person talking about another famous person they haven't met, I kind of think that's weird. I kind of think, what? Like, this famous person has never met that famous person? Because in my little bit of experience with the world of fame and Hollywood and stuff, I was never the famous one. I was just kind of the guy that all the famous people knew who thought was cool. They thought I was cool, but I wasn't the famous one. They knew that I was an artist and stuff like that. So I got the invites. I got the, what do you call that? I got vouched for by the famous people and the cool people. And I don't know. I think mostly because they know the difference between somebody who's pretending to be an artist and somebody who actually does art, who actually is involved in it deeply for whatever stupid reasons people have for making art, But anyway, so she and I write a couple songs, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. This is good. I played Pink Song with a lot of people, and I enjoy it no matter what. Even when lines are cliche or terrible, I still like the challenge of doing it. And I really like playing with novices that don't know how, they've never written a song before. But with this Rachel woman, it was pretty effortless, except for she had this typical, I don't know. Sometimes you can't tell if somebody is eccentric because they want to be seen as eccentric, or if they're literally just kind of nuts. Do you know what I mean? Because I think I had the elements of being a little bit more phony about eccentricity. And I guess in a way that kind of qualifies you as being eccentric anyway, because what person's going to pretend to be eccentric that isn't eccentric? It's eccentric to pretend to be eccentric. For example, when I was young, I would make up, I reorganized the alphabet 10 different ways and memorized it 10 different ways just by reorganizing the letters, right? And I memorized it, and I would say things like, to people that I didn't know, I wonder why people say the alphabet in the order that we say it in. And I get it, it rhymes, but why don't we say it this way? And then I'd rattle off 26 letters that I'd memorized as if I was doing it on the fly, as if I was some kind of autistic savant or something. Typical just magician, street magician. And I would play it off for a long time with people, and they think, "What? How do you do that? You mean you?" And I just go, I can imagine. And you just look at the alphabet. You can't just rearrange them in your mind. Blah blah blah. Ultimately, I would tell people, that I was pulling their leg, and that I had too much Penn and Teller about me, where I could only keep the trick going for so long before I had to divulge, and then also kind of make fun of them for falling for it. I don't know. Just I'm not a good person. I never have been, and this is evidence of that. Making people feel bad for going along with my trick. I did this to my sister when we were young. I used to convince her that there were UFOs in the backyard, or I would set up things in the room so that it would create a shadow on the wall that looked like a person. And then I'd convince her there was a ghost. And, she goes, "Yeah, you're lying. No, there isn't." And I'd just keep going until she believed me. And then I'd make fun of her for believing me. I'm telling you, there's a reason why I don't have any friends. I'm not really a good person. So anyway, so I noticed that in other people. You can spot that in somebody else. You can tell when somebody's putting on an air of eccentricity. You know what the formulas are. You know what buttons they're pushing. You know what things they're going for. That's kind of the rules of the fashion industry. Is everybody's going right, you go left, and it's kind of a pretty simple formula, really. Being cool, it's just being an asshole. Really, it's just like everybody else likes a certain thing, you go and like another thing. You're always just standing out. Look at me, I'm not like you guys, I'm better. I am better than you guys. I don't know. And who knows how that starts? Who knows why it starts? I don't know why it started. I don't know why I was like that as a kid. I don't remember choosing my personality in heaven or anything like that. You're kind of stuck with what you got, But again, you know it when you see it. You know it when you see it, And that kind of paints a picture that there's no sincere reason to do art. And there are. That's the thing. That's the weird part about the artist. And there's the side that I just described, which is eccentric and kind of a show and kind of bullshit and formulaic in a way, as far as easy to stand out. Everybody's doing this, you do that. Be ahead of the curve. It's not hard to be ahead of the curve. You just spot a trend and go as far away from it as you can. Don't ever follow it. Set the trend. Or at least be outside of it. Setting the trend makes it seem like, you kind of have to have a tribe of people following you around in order to do it. But just being outside of it and not classifiable, that's kind of like an easy thing to do. And I've been better at it in certain points of my life and less good at it in other points, Looking back, I can see definitely how I was a sucker for certain trends where I thought that I wasn't, But anyway, certainly Kiss were trendsetters, I guess they were kind of picking up on the David Bowie glam rock kind of stuff, and they took it to a degree where they deserve credit for it, obviously. But so, fast forward to when I met her, she was going out with Ace, living with him, common law wife or whatever, but also kind of nuts. So when I first started writing songs with her, She would like, instead of writing one line back, she'd write a whole verse back. And I'd have to be like, that's not how the game goes. I'm not here to just write a song. I'm not here to coach you how to write a song, or, it's like one line at a time. And sometimes it's hard to get people to obey that rule, especially if people are songwriters in their own. And so she just kind of had this crazy kind of vibe. Again, I couldn't detect if it was a put on or if she was actually just kind of nuts. And again, people that pretend to be nuts, Klinger, for example, in MASH, dressed like a woman to get out of the army. If you will do that, you are kind of nuts, even if you're calculated about it. I don't know. Anyway, but we write a couple of good songs. It's pretty easy. It's hard to keep her on track, hard to keep her finishing songs. But, I become one of these people that she'd call or text when drama was happening, You know how you can tell? I don't know. I've been this guy for a long time. One of the biggest curses in my life has been that I have been used a number of times to upset husbands and boyfriends. Granted, I kind of put myself out there to do that, taking pictures of naked ladies, doing this, dressing up like I'm some kind of Texas oil tycoon who doesn't give a shit and is badass and blah, blah, blah. Beard and sunglasses, cowboy hat and all that shit, I kind of put myself in that position. I didn't do it because knowing that would be the position. In fact, I didn't really like it. I didn't like being the guy that women would use to make their boyfriends jealous or upset. It's kind of a cucky position if you think about it. It's not this position to brag about at all. It's just like, and it happened to me a lot of times, Pretty girl comes over. She acts like she really likes me. She likes to be in pictures with me on Facebook and get tagged and this and that. But she has a boyfriend, and the boyfriend gets mad. I get sucker punched by the boyfriend at a bar, Just nonsense, just total bullshit. But I got that. I didn't get that exact sense from Rachel, but you get what you do is you get the sense that somebody is using you for their own sense of validation, while they're in a relationship with somebody else. They're using you to gauge whether or not they still got it, air quotes, if they can get you interested. But anyway, I'm by this point, I'm, how old was I at that time? I don't know. I'm 58 now, so I was already approaching 50. I was probably already 50, But compared to her boyfriend, Ace, I'm a younger guy. But anyway, not that was about that. But I felt that vibe, There was this flirtatious kind of a thing coming mostly from her end. My interest was making songs. And I'll say this, she has talent. She can sing just as, her eccentricity and her ability to sing, if harnessed properly, she could have been an indie somebody. She could have had, she's released a couple of records, whatever. I'm dilly-dallying around this point. But, so the point is over the course of knowing her and these little communications, she's having fights with Ace and getting very public about it, having a public spat. And then suddenly they're breaking up and he's kicking her out of the house. And she's getting super dramatic, and threatening to sue and bringing up all these stories about these terrible things that he's done and terrible things that, Gene Simmons has done, making all these allegations outside of, all over the internet, and becomes this drama thing. And, at first I'm kind of like on her side because I know her a little bit. I don't want to be on her side, but I'm like going, when you become friends with somebody, you're like, okay. But I certainly wasn't interested in becoming I don't know, the counselor. So mostly I was like, can we just write another song? I don't really want to hear about all this stuff. But then COVID comes around, right? 2019 comes around, and their relationship just totally he abandons her, He has enough of her shit. And at first, like I said, I'm kind of taking her side. She's like, oh, we were together for 11 years. I took care of him. He was a heroin addict. He was a drug addict. He did this and that. And he's a shitty guy. And I love him so much. And blah, blah, blah. And XYZ. And I'm getting this kind of attitude where you just kind of go, I'm fighting this attitude of Hollywood gold digger girlfriend. I'm like going, I don't want to do that. It's becoming so... You have to consider that, when you got this young girl and this old guy. You kind of go, okay, is it legitimate? Is it not? Is she, that whole thing is like, if you're famous, if you're Ace Frehley or Gene Simmons or Donald Trump or fucking Shaquille O'Neal or whatever, it's just the idea that you can ever just have a loving relationship where you can completely trust the one you're with is like, I don't know, it's next to nothing, And even if you do, when things start getting shitty, I mean, I guess this is true with any relationship, divorces, and you can have 5 years or 10 years of good times, and then people start splitting up, and all these allegations going around. You raped me. Gene Simmons sexually assaulted me, and I've got so much dirt. And anyway, things were getting ugly, and I was still her friend, and we were still trying to write songs, and started a few, didn't finish many. And I kept trying to keep the subject on that. Well, this is a good time to write a song. We wrote a song called I Don't Think I Can Stay in L.A., which is a pretty good song, quite frankly. But as it goes on, I see this story. She starts really marketing herself as a victim. Like, he abandoned me. I don't have any money. I'm living here in this. And I'm seeing the way she's posting for GoFundMes and asking for money. But then because I'm kind of friends with her, I'm seeing that she has a Mercedes and she's still in this expensive house, and I'm seeing her I'm seeing the workings, and she moves out of this one and moves in with that person, this other rock star, or this other lawyer, and they put her up in this, and she's making this story that she's destitute and everything, but I'm seeing behind the scenes where that's not even necessarily true, that she still has antiques and expensive things to sell. When you have a $80,000 Mercedes and you're trying to pretend like you're destitute, I don't know, and just moving into people's houses. This is all the stuff I heard, and it's all alleged, it's all secondhand, so, I'm not trying to libel or slander. I don't know that, this is just my impression, I start seeing that, and then she starts coming, she's maybe got this impression of me, which some people have had, that I've got rock star kind of connections or whatever. And I don't know. I felt this pressure, this slight pressure, like, offer me something, Merkley, I won't say save me, but, like, she was definitely in handout mode. Give me a handout. Feel sorry for me. Give me a handout. And I just didn't see it. I was just like, I'm sorry, but none of this stuff you're saying to me sounds like a person that's really destitute. And she's shopping around book rights, and she's thinking about suing, and she's doing this, but maybe there's a prenup. I don't know. I can't remember the details. But the longer this goes on, and with the COVID thing, because initially the conversations I was having with her is that she and her friend, they were totally not on the COVID bandwagon, and they were the freedom, don't wear a mask thing. But as soon as this breakup with Ace was coming down, then all of a sudden she turned up the COVID thing. I've been abandoned during COVID, and there's nothing, and just the drama, and just everything was cranked up to Hollywood. First of all, you've seen people in divorces do that anyway. People that got along, suddenly they're accusing the other person of molesting their children. People say the most awful fucking shit about their former loved ones when they're going through these separation things. And I'm seeing this up and down thing going on with Ace Frehley and this woman that I'm kind of friends with that I've been writing songs with. And I'm like, because of this drama, I'm like looking into it and looking at what other people are saying about her and these other allegations, and she's getting on podcasts and oh man. And like everybody's taking Ace's side, and she's coming off as this gold digging, but I like her. I think she's cool. I think she's great and everything. But at a certain point, she was turning up the kind of the vibe of everything's shitty for me. I'm out in the desert in a trailer and I'm destitute. But then I'd see these pictures, these pictures on Instagram. It's just like, wait, that's a nice place you're in. That's not a trailer in the desert. What are you talking about? Then she'd make up this thing, and then I'd hear a story about her moving into somebody else's expensive house, and then Ace stopped paying. Like, there's this whole thing where she was doing this, and then Ace would cover her bills and give her something, or I don't know, just fucking drama. But the whole thing, at the end, I started thinking, oh, fuck, I get it. I get why Ace Frehley's trying to get away from this woman. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to be unfair to her. I also feel that same way about almost every married man ever. Every married man that's ever had problems with his wife. I just, ultimately I go, oh, man, women are great when they're great, but when they, woman scorned, what's that scripture? Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Boy, hell really hath no fury like a woman scorned with a possible book deal in her back pocket. But as I'm watching this thing, it kind of seems like this woman is burning every single bridge. And she's, of course, saying that it's because Gene Simmons' lawyers are so powerful that they can quash anything. But the empire is so big, and there's death threats and just really Hollywood movie kind of stuff going on behind the scenes that she can't get an attorney, and she can't get that because Gene Simmons is so well connected and Ace is so well connected that nobody will take her case because it's certain death for them if they do, because of, I don't know, some Hollywood mob or whatever. Again, I'm paraphrasing, and don't quote me on any of this shit, but, I'm just giving you the vibe. But I'm also thinking, actually, it seems like you're just biting every hand that feeds you. Because she, even when I push back on anything, is snap. Anyway, ultimately, I tough loved her with some things. I said she was making these guilty posts and drama and just like, I'm lost in the middle of nowhere. It's just like, dude, you're a pretty lady with lots of talent. Fucking buck up. Quit hanging everything on this whole you're trying to mine this relationship thing. If you want to prove that you're not gold digger, that's what I'm basically saying. If you want to prove that you're not a gold digger, then don't try to exploit this breakup. Lots of people break up, you know, and just because you dated a million, this is my opinion. Courts see it differently sometimes, but just because you dated somebody that was famous for a long time, I don't think that should mean that you're entitled to half of their fortune or even a large portion. He never married her. He chose not to. That's a pretty clear indication. I don't know how courts see it, that if you're with somebody for so long, then it's a de facto marriage. I resent that, because what it says to me is that somebody's going, I really don't want to. I don't want to break up with them, but I don't want to be with them forever. Otherwise, I would marry them, blah, 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 blah. But the thing was, I was just trying to say, if you want to keep your dignity about yourself, then just fucking cut it off. Go do your own thing. Who cares? Who cares if you're living in an RV? So you have to be like everybody else. Big deal. Is it so bad to be like everybody else? Everybody else is seemingly fine with being everybody else. Most people aren't married to rock stars, and they're fine. And they're probably happier than you or me or anybody else, Anyway, this kind of advice did not fare well, and she blocked me on all channels. Instagram, Facebook, and that was the end of that, which was, I don't know, kind of a relief, because it was such a it was always just, some people just, there's always drama from the moment, and I never met her in true life. Never met her in true life. I never met her friends in true life. Or I think one of her friends, we had a big falling out over COVID, because she was totally with me for the beginning, and then all of a sudden she turned into this neurotic Jew and thought the whole thing was, oh no, everybody's dying, and blocked me for some groups. And years later, like last year, she tried to get back in my good graces and pretend like nothing ever happened. And I was just like, fuck you, get out of here. You and all your friends, just get the fuck out of here. You shallow, weird, fucking cool hounds. Hollywood. Yuck. That's what it is. Just yuck. The whole thing is yuck. That's what I'm trying to say here. It's all yuck. Like, I don't look back at any of my contacts with fame and fortune and think, boy, those were the days. No, I don't. I look back and it's yuck. The whole thing is yuck. Well, not the whole thing. The making art part is fun. The couple of songs, the few songs, the handful of songs I made with people are pretty good songs, And I think if you sat down and played them, people go, that's a pretty good song. And that's kind of what I was trying to tell her through this whole breakup. I was trying to say, just write your own songs, just record your own songs. You don't have to get in the studio, because Ace was making his own albums and stuff, trying to have a comeback. He's in his 70s. He's fat and bloated and still trying to do the same kind of rock and roll, and he's making these really awful songs, in my opinion. They're really just awful. And he's trying to promote himself coming off this breakup. And he's kind of smart. He doesn't address the drama much. He just kind of downplays it and seems to be just trying to move on with his life. Like, I don't know. What do you do? What do you do if you're an old man and so what? You lived with this woman. She didn't have any of your kids. She helped you clean up puke every once in a while? And now she wants half of your fortune? I don't know. When she was flying jet set around the world and being Ace Frehley's girlfriend for a long time, isn't that just enough? I don't know. I guess if you can't write a book and do a tell-all, that's not enough, you know? I don't know. Again, like I said, the whole thing's yuck. This feels yuck to talk about it. I know that by talking about it, it's kind of reveals a character flaw that I have, you know? You, it, but I will just preface that with like, this woman and I weren't close friends, you know? We were ping song buddies over the internet, you know? But yeah, the whole thing's yuck. It's just yuck, yuck, yuck. And when you go back and when you look at Gene Simmons' interviews and just the way he's behaved and the way he was about COVID, and, you know, for a while there, you think, oh, maybe he's got some Republican capitalist, you know, conservative values. But then during COVID, he's just like, you don't wear your fucking mask, you deserve to die, and all that shit. And you're like, yuck. Hey, Gene, yuck. Hey, you fucked 20,000 women, yuck. It's disgusting, it's gross. It's gross, okay? The whole thing is gross. Ace Frehley's gross. I'm gross. Gross. You know? Gene Simmons is gross. Prince is gross. Everybody's gross in that world. Not everybody. There are a few that aren't gross, but the strippers, the grabbing by the pussy, the clubs, the backstage passes, the roadies that go out and get girls, it's gross. The plastic surgery is gross. The getting on stage singing about gross things is gross. It's yuck. It's all yuck. Okay? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if the Donny Osmond world is yuck too. I mean, Taylor Swift, that's got to be yuck backstage. You know? My friends, no doubt. I look back at it and I go, oh, okay, there's some fun times that I had some friends, but it's kind of just yuck too because, you know, they can't talk to me because of my political views, my political opinions. I had to put distance between them and me when I defended conservatives. You know, that's yuck. That's yuck. You know, filtering everything you say through a lawyer or a manager. It's yuck. And I want to say I feel glad that I'm free from it, but the yuck still hovers. It chases you around. You know, your past. I mean, all the time you wasted, all the time I wasted on those things because, you know, it's easy to talk now like I'm above it all and I figured it out and I got away from it, but it doesn't change the fact that I invested that time in it. And it doesn't change the fact that I'm talking about it now, which is, you guessed it, kinda yuck. Because it's that thing, like I've said before, fame is a disease that it's contagious and affects you whether you like it or not. You know? If it wasn't Ace Frehley, and his name wasn't all over the news today with all the thousands of tributes from people who've never met him. They just bought his records, maybe saw him live, liked his costume, liked the silver paint, liked the cool shoes, you know? Like this, whatever, what he represented, this hero. Not even really paying attention to the shitty lyrics that came and maybe a lot of the bad life choices that came from idolizing this guy, you know, and would I have ever even had this story to tell about, who again, I don't have any bad feelings towards, you know, I feel, I feel as badly for her as I do for me, which isn't to say pity, but when you get wrapped up in that world, it's disappointing. It doesn't yield wonderful fruits. It just doesn't. Okay? I don't know. Maybe you can look at some people and go, oh, they have this fantastic life or whatever. But I don't look at a single famous person right now and think, I wish I had that. You know? I wish that. I mean, maybe there'll be moments like the access seems nice. You know, that's the one thing I kind of miss from that, maybe a little tinge of missing from the notoriety is that access was quicker. If I wanted to get my phone call answered, it was easier when I was fame adjacent. You know, I could get phone calls answered. now, now I get, now I'm just like a normal guy. I get blocked and treated like a regular old asshole on the internet. My clout is down to zero. And there's a tremendous freedom that comes from that. It's wonderful and everything. But sometimes you just think, damn, I could have just got where I was going with a single phone call at a certain point, you know. Now it's just like, back of the line, old man. Nobody gives a shit about your stupid long white beard, you know. And that's fine. It's a blessing. But I'm rambling now. You know, there's no reason. There's no reason to feel terribly for anybody. You know, that's another thing I kind of wanted to say is like, another reason why I might be a bad person is that when somebody dies, I'm not one of these people to effusively eulogize and talk about how wonderful they were, because I just don't think that about people normally. I'm mostly just like, people are kind of gross. I feel that way about myself. I feel that way about other people. You know, somebody dies, I go, I think about all the shitty things they did in life more than I think about the wonderful things. I guess that's one of the reasons why Charlie Kirk's death kind of bugged me, because he didn't have any of those obvious things that so many other people do have. You know, that self-centered, narcissistic, fame-seeking, look at me. He didn't remind me at all of me. Let's just put it that way, which is probably why I liked him. I tend to not like people where I can see the familiar traits where I go, ooh, I know what they're doing, and that's gross because I know exactly how that goes. I know what they're doing, you know? It's a terrible thing that the more somebody reminds me of me, the less I like them, you know? That's probably something for a shrink to hear. But anyway, this has gone on for long enough. You don't have to feel sorry for famous people. But I guess what I'm trying to say is there is absolutely no reason ever to envy them. You know what I mean? Pity is lame. It's kind of a wasted thing. But I kind of do pity a lot of famous people. I feel sorry for them. I have to admit that. I feel sorry for getting wrapped up in this. Now she's got to deal with his death and his eulogies. I don't feel sorry for him. He's dead, you know. But he's just a dead guy. You know, he slipped in his studio, trying to make some other shitty song. Now he's dead. And the whole world is acting like we lost one of the greatest people in the world. Actually, you lost a drug addict, alcoholic, guy who had good days and bad days, but because of the nature of his life, probably on the whole was, I don't know. I'm not here to judge. But did he make people's lives better? I don't know. Maybe he made them worse. Maybe there are people out there worshiping Satan instead of going to church because they thought Kiss was cool. I don't know. Maybe my life would have been better if I had never made high platform Adidas. If I never thought Kiss was cool. Were they an influence for good or evil? I don't know. That's up to you to decide. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. Unnecessary outro song to